so great to see some new faces joining us today. Thanks for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join our grade 1, 2, 3 meeting. I announced that it's a grade 1, 2, 3 meeting, so everybody knows they're in the right spot. So if you're not, there are other sessions going on for grade 7s and 8s and 4, 5, 6 in kindergarten. So we're all at the same time. So just want to make sure everybody's in the right spot. So thank you so much for taking time to join us. Tanya, there you are again, connecting again. Tanya and I were chatting earlier today. She's one of our hosts. I'm Pam Gallant, by the way, from the elementary program team, and Tanya is one of our new instructional coaches. I want to say hello.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. And then we have Val and Laura, who are teachers from the virtual school that are here supporting as well. So thank you so much to them for coming and their suggestions and input. We really appreciate that.
A vast bit of knowledge and experience, and but I still think they say they're still learning every day. So that's what we call upon them to learn and share, and they've problem solved for lots of things. So it'll be interesting to hear what they've experienced. So thanks for taking the time to join us. We're a couple of minutes out from our start time, so we'll just allow people to join us. Tanya, do you want me to run the chat again today?
Sure, that would be lovely. I appreciate that. And then I will present the screen.
Amazing. Yeah, so most teachers are still getting a handle on Google Meet and using that. So just to remind you that we're in Zoom today, so the controls are in a little different spot, but they all basically function the same way. So if you have something you'd like to ask or a comment to make, there's the chat. If you're on a computer, you just scroll down onto the bottom and you'll see those icons there. There's a chat and you can just type to everyone, or if you'd like to ask a specific question to people, you can pick someone's name out of the list, but if you want everyone to see it, just make sure you click on everyone. And then if you want to go off mic, we can do that as well. This session is being recorded, so we will be able to share those out with others that aren't able to attend us today. And I think Tanya will be sharing with you a bit.ly. We'll put that in the chat as well once the slides get up. So if you want to look at the resources, we will be able to share them with you there.
Awesome. So that bit.ly is on the screen. It should be displayed right now for you. As Pam mentioned, the controls are a little bit different from Google Meet, and I was actually a virtual teacher before I was the instructional coach. So I'm quite used to Google Meet, and I'm trying to get used to Zoom controls right now. So
I find it funny when people say, I'm a virtual teacher. I'm like, no, you're real teachers. Didn't happen to be in the virtual school.
That's true. That is true. All right. So thank you. So again, just as Pam had mentioned, this is the grade 1, 2, 3 Google Meet. So hopefully you are where you want to be. If not, the others are going on at the same time. So feel free to hop onto one of those ones if that's where you had actually intended to land. The bit.ly is here if you would like to access this after, if you want to go over some of the different things that we talk about from the slide. And let's move forward. There we go. So some of the things that we're going to be chatting about in this session is assessment. We know that that's a really big question and concern that's coming up. How do you assess students when they are handing in their work virtually? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We have some different examples of how you can do assessment and different types of activities that students can do. Assessing the student thinking versus parent thinking. We'll have a little bit about how you could use Google Slides for daily plans and maybe how that might be useful for you. And of course, time at the end, we're hoping that we will have 4 questions. But we do have a space right now if anyone has any wonderings or question that you hope are going to be covered. So please feel free to just pop them in the chat box if you want. And then we can kind of make sure that we touch on those throughout the presentation. or you're welcome to come off mic if you have a burning question at the moment. All right, so we'll move forward. So assessment, student learning, intentionality, what do I want to know? The tools and the gathering evidence of that. Pam, did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, we had lots of conversations about assessment all the time. And, we think about when we're in face-to-face classrooms, brick and mortar schools, we're assessed all the time. We're gathering information, like finding about, at recess time, you might actually find out what a kid knows about science because they're, chatting with you on a walk around the schoolyard. But now that we're in this environment of the virtual, like we've taken a different lens on assessment. So we still have, the same responsibilities to find what students know, but it does have a different look. So there's so many things to talk about. We wanted to make sure we narrowed our conversation kind of back to what can I reflect on at the end of every day when I'm thinking about assessments. So today, when we talk about an example through the science lens using Seesaw, we want to be reflecting on these points. So intentionality. So what do I want to know about student learning from this activity? What tools do I have to use to get at the student learning, and what tools might students use to the learning so they can show what they know or communicate what they know? And then again, back to the teacher, how am I going to gather that evidence and what am I going to look at? So have that kind of as our reflection point as we think about our assessments today.
And I'm just going to go back because I think that I've missed our, I did.
Our land
our
acknowledgement.
So yeah, I skipped right past. So do you want to get that? Because I think this was your picture.
It is my picture from
Beautiful picture. Yeah.
Thank you. It was actually one day I like to go out in nature, which I highly recommend to everybody get out, especially on days with some blue sky. But this day I arrived and it was so beautiful, the sky, and I was not wearing sensible shoes. So it forced me to stay in one spot and just watch the sunset. So this is at Wawanash. It's a beautiful spot, and welcome just if you're in the area. So we'd like to acknowledge that the land in which we are gathered is part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Delaware nations. These indigenous nations, known as the Anishmek and the Lenape, agreed through their ancestral languages to the mutual sharing of the land with obligations and responsibilities to the environment. Today, these responsibilities and obligations extend to all peoples.
Awesome. And I love so much that we are starting to add our own pictures to these so that it has a little bit more meaning for each of us. I think that that's a really great idea. And someone who co-shared with us last week had said that in their class, they actually have the students send in pictures and then they give the students an opportunity to talk about that picture and what that means to them. So I think that's a really great connection. And I just had to bring that up again because I thought that was an nice awesome with idea.
Stay-at-home order too. That one thing we can do though is families can go out and for exercise purposes. So we have that in mind. That's good. So I'll just continue here. When we think about intentionality, after thinking about what you're wanting to know about students, you might ask yourself this question: what do I want to know? So this is your thinking about before you actually select an activity or have a conversation with students or begin to think about doing a number talk today. What am I observing from students? You want to be clear about what you want to know about the student learning. So that could be a big idea, it could be a skill, it could be knowledge, and that's the focus of it. So with this virtual world that we're learning in and teaching in, that intentionality probably has to be really honed in. So as we continue our conversation, I'll probably flex between my language of like a learning goal, learning target, learning intention. Find one that suits you. It's just, what is that learning goal that I want to have in that language that I can articulate to my students, and I remain true to my own thinking. What am I looking for? And then the second part to that is, so how will I know what students can do or know? So what is that evidence I will look for? And then again, I want to think a little bit of lead up time to this, spend some time here trying to be really clear and focused but not have too many. So like 3, 4 that you're looking for. And like we call that the success criteria. So what are students doing to show that they successfully know that big idea? Or what is it they can demonstrate so they show they have that skill? Okay. So to put us in the context of this, Tanya's going to take us through a seesaw activity that she found. And this is a grade 2 kind of, we were landed in the area of science. And so we wanted to put that into language. So for that learning goal, we are learning to identify simple machines found in everyday objects. And when I'm looking with students, I'm going to be looking to see that they can communicate. I lost my page. There we go. So accurately name simple machines. So that's something I can listen for. They can accurately name simple machines. Maybe they're using labels. I can look for that. And throughout the activities I share with them, I would like them to be able to identify features of the machine. And then I want to know if they know that simple machines are here to make tasks easier. So can they communicate that to me? And when I say communicate, maybe they can draw me a picture, maybe they can write something, maybe they can tell me. I'm open to what communication means. Okay, so that's the landscape we're working in. Simple machines, do they know what they are,
Awesome.
what the features, and is life going to be easier? Okay, all yours.
Awesome. And so we're going to take a look at a seesaw activity here now. This one doesn't give me the little thing if I'm still sharing. Am I still sharing here? Can you still see
I can see
my
the
screen?
activity.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So here is our simple machines scavenger hunt idea. So an idea that you could have is this could be a link to a website or information that you've already gone over as a class, but you may also want to include this information in the slideshow. You could record over this as well for students if they are not strong readers, or just as an extra help, especially for those students who might be doing an option 2, because then they can still do this activity without you having to give extra material. So if you were to prepare this in this way, it kind of hits all of those learners. So we have some of that information about different machines, simple machines. And then what you could do is have them take a picture of what they found around their house. So they could go on a bit of a scavenger hunt and take a picture and upload it within Seesaw about what they know. This can be a really great opportunity for the students to show you what they've made sense of in their world and those real life applications. But we do have to be aware of some of those inequities that may exist, because not everyone has an iPad that they're going to be able to bring up and bring with them. They might have a desktop computer that they're just not going to be able to bring to take pictures with. So you could provide other opportunities for them with that. They might be able to use the tools and draw something for you, or if they're maybe in an older grade, or have someone that can help them take a picture from the internet and put that in there and show you where they got that information. But this could be a really interesting way to make those connections at home for students. So I have a slot here for each of the items. And then we thought that a really interesting idea would be to have the students take a picture of one of the simple machines they found, so they could put one at the end, and then use that microphone tool to explain about it. And what's really kind of neat about that is when they use that recording tool, it actually allows them to speak and to use that their own voice and the arrow as well. And that can be really, really handy, because they can point to different aspects of that for you as they are explaining it. I'm sorry, my internet is being kind of slow. So that's right over here. So if they had a picture of, I don't know what that's supposed to be, maybe a wedge, and they could use that recording feature. And this little arrow pops up to explain. And then you can see that and they can check. And the nice thing about that as well is that you can hear what the student knows, and if there's anyone else kind of in the background helping them along with that vocabulary or any of those ideas. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add about that? from our team?
There's nothing in the chat there either, but remember you can ask the chats. Val or Laura, have you ever experienced that where you're like, you're wondering who created this picture and
Yeah,
how did you handle that?
To kind of combat that is I have them click the microphone button before they even begin, and then that records them while they're completing the activity. So if I have any sorting or drag and drop or any interactive seesaw activities that they're working on, if they click that microphone first, it records them building the picture, it records them sorting the activity or erasing the hexagons to find the sight word, whatever it is. So then I can hear how much support is being provided in the background during the completion of that task.
That's excellent. And I'm also thinking too, that would be a really big indicator of they don't know how to use a particular tool well. That could be my tomorrow's mini lesson too. Like to say, oh, they know how to use 3 of these 4 tools, but this one, they don't even know exists. I'm going to target that. It's really, I like that idea of microphone first. Val, anything from your perspective?
I like it. And
same thing over here. The microphone tool is magic. And I think there's a max of 5 minutes that they can, so it's a long time that they have to be able to complete 5 minutes per slide, right? So lots of time.
and the nice thing with that too is they could do this multiple times on a page. So this becomes kind of like a video recording right here. So we can actually kind of slide that over and minimize it. And what some are doing with these is you could record a voice recording yourself to have students use as well, or they could have different parts that they explain. Or this could also be a feedback option for yourself. So if you wanted to comment on something, you answered this correctly and this correctly, but I want you to check this over here, you could record yourself showing that and send that back to the students, and they can see that with that arrow as I demonstrated earlier.
I don't know if people caught that.
As with them.
Yeah, I don't know if people caught that on your screen, but you minimize it because it ends up being a very big recording and kind of over top of the slide, right? And then you have the opportunity to minimize it to make it smaller. Because I struggle
bring
with
it to
that
the side and then.
Yeah, where did it go?
And this is something I actually,
and we can see I'm kind of moving it around
here.
Yeah.
And this is something I actually like a lot more about virtual learning, is because how many science classes or social studies classes have you had where language, the writing and reading capabilities is really holding you back from your class completing the assignment that you had in your head well? You're sitting at that guided reading table with all your friends that you need to scribe for, and then you have the friends that know how to write that are working independently, but they're struggling with the science concept. So I love the microphone tool as their way to communicate answers instead of writing in social studies and science, because it eliminates that language barrier from those subjects.
That's really interesting too.
It really helps you
to be able to communicate about the science concept. So when we think communicate, that can be speaking, that can be drawing a picture, that could be writing, that could be gesturing, like how gears work, all of those things. Tanya and I have different internet speeds, so sometimes I cut her off. I feel so bad. So you're Tanya, go ahead.
That was just what I was going to say, is that it's a really great way to honor the student voice of what they know, and so that technology, or they can use that technology to help them show, and the language of the writing isn't going to hold them back from showing you what they know.
So just like in our classroom though, like one activity won't be rich enough to show us everything that we wanted to know in that learning goal or 6 criteria. And maybe we've got some more evidence that's gathered through the activity itself. But and so essentially you're creating a product there with a few opportunities for you to observe what students know by listening to them or watching what they've created on the screen. But that may not be enough. Like you might need to do another activity, that sort of piece. But again, how to pull that out of them we've been learning lots about some tools. And so Tanya, your experience at the virtual school, and Laura and Val, you probably have some favorites on this list. So any sharing about those?
Well, I'm just going to jump in first, so I'm not cutting anyone off after going a little bit slower. That when we were discussing this list, we really wanted to make sure that we brought up the idea about Jamboard and Whiteboard and how we need to choose a tool that is going to help the students to showcase what they know, and it's not going to hold them back. So really thinking about what is worthwhile for your students to use and to learn to use. Because so at the virtual school, there have been some difficulties with Jamboard. Val and Laura are both kind of shaking their heads. Do you want to speak about that and maybe how you've overcome that, or decided to go in maybe a different direction for that?
So I've opted not to use Jamboard as an interactive tool with my students. Sometimes I'll use it to show my writing during a number talk of what their thinking is, but we hit a lot of roadblocks with that at the beginning. And I found that using the drawing feature in Seesaw, I could make them interactive. They could do pretty well everything I was going to use Jamboard for, but they had already mastered those tools. So we've just stuck with that. Being grade 1, I felt it was too much to kind of sort through without enough reward on the other end of it. So Seesaw, drawing, and recording is our go-to.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. The nice thing that I was enticed by in Jamboard is that they could do partner work in Jamboard. So you could have groups working on the same slide, but the cons outweighed the pros. We talked a bit about it last week in our session about how our iPad friends can't click on the link we're providing in the chat box. So desktop and laptop and Chromebooks can go right to the Jamboard link, but it was a lot more difficult for iPad friends to make it in there. And also maneuvering any manipulatives on Jamboard is a lot more difficult with iPad friends than our computer friends as well. So I found out from the iPad end, which is what a lot of our, that's what our schools are dishing out to people who do, to our students who don't have technology at home. It's really limited for our iPad friends.
And you're
Right,
right.
and so
The tools are really, really strong. Like they're very good. So if you're lead with strength with that, and do some people actually just use like an actual whiteboard or a piece of paper?
Yeah.
Awesome. And that's a great way to have that interactive component to your lessons as well, because they're still able to practice those hand-eye coordination. They're still able to practice that writing and hold it up for you. So you're still able to get pretty quick feedback with that and not have the technology side of it kind of pull you back from the learning of the student. We talked about the drawing and the video recording and voice recording. Google Forms may not be as useful for this kind of age range for the students because, again, they're so wordy. A lot of times it's difficult for them to navigate that. But it might be a useful tool if you needed to send to your parents, or it might be a useful tool for you as well to create something for a quick assessment piece. All of the information that goes into that Google form can get put right into a spreadsheet. So it's really quick and easy for you to see how your students answered in particular items.
And I'm interested about
slides. Sorry, go ahead.
We could just talk about the Google form for a minute. It may not be a tool that students can read on their own, but we think about our language times, like it might be the shared reading piece that you bring to the table and share that reading together and have then students be able to respond to the form with you reading it to them. So be thinking about it may be a science or social studies or use a Google form, but you might want to explore that in your language time too. So think about that guided time and shared time that you have with students.
Again, that'll be hard with your iPad friends because they're not able to be
Okay.
in Google Meet and in the Google form at the same time. So
Oh.
yeah, so when you're reading aloud, the iPad friends will either have to choose, do I want to be in the Google Meet or do I want to be in the Google form?
Like when you say in it, do you mean like looking at it or actually be in it, like
Yeah,
participate?
because if the Google Meet is minimized on the iPad, they're not hearing the audio like on a laptop.
Okay. This is why we have virtual school teachers here, because they've lived it. Get over those bumps of the road.
The hard
I've
one.
tried that.
That's good. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll keep moving here. And we were going to just mention to have slides in Google. We're going to kind of mention that later on. Is it more of a teacher tool than a student tool for this age group? Other grade age groups might really use this in Excel with us, but it might be a little bit difficult for grade 1, 2, 3 friends to use.
So if we think about going back to that educator lens again, so if we think about what do we want to know? So we had the learning goal and success criteria, and then we give the students an activity, and we think about the tools we might use to get them to, tell us what they know, show us what they know. So as teachers, like Growing Success guides us to use that triangulation of data to gather evidence. Fancy term, but it just means we can use products and conversations and observations to gather that information. I like what can kids represent? What do they say? And what do they do? Like this comes from the kindergarten language actually in their document, but it's the same thing. I, as a teacher, have the responsibility to gather that evidence, and I can use any of these three or all three or combinations of these three to gather that evidence. So now that we've taken that turn to virtual learning, we probably are finding out, ooh, a product was really easy in the classroom and not so easy at now that's virtual learning, or like I used to talk to my kids all the time, and how do I do that now? So to know that we're here to support you with your different ideas.
Right. So sometimes you might need to follow up a product with a conversation after. If you're still not sure, maybe if they were representing their thinking or were helped along with that. And so that's where that kind of triangulation comes into play as well. Val, did you want to speak on this one? So this could be a way to get some quick information to record some of that information about students.
Yeah, so my morning meets, we cover a lot of the language and the math learning goals that we've been working on in big whole group lessons, and then we're recovering that in our morning meets. And then our morning meets, because it's live interaction, we're using our whiteboards constantly, and that is where I know that there's no parent interference because I'm asking a question, they're showing it on their whiteboard. So all their mics are muted. I might choose one or two to share what they've learned, but I have this sheet double-sided in my day plans so that I have everybody's name on there, so I can write anecdotal notes during our morning meets or our number talks. So my learning goal for this week might be like we're learning to spell unfamiliar words using chunks. So we're talking about, okay, here's 4 pictures. Which pictures start with CH that make a ch sound? And so they have to spell the 2 pictures that start with a ch, and then they're writing those words down on their whiteboard and they're showing it up to me. Okay, so now I can be like, okay, I have 0 notes on Billy so far. Billy got the beginning sound right, but he's still working on his ending sound. He's rushing through. He's got the beginning, we're working on the ending sound, and I can make a quick note there. And those notes really help not only guide my instruction for where we're going next, but they're also going to help me with when I get to report cards. Now I know, okay, for when we get to spelling unfamiliar words or reading unfamiliar words, I know kind of the strategies that are working for them and the strategies that their next steps are. So anecdotal notes have been really big for me during number talks and morning meets.
So
and the handy thing with that, sorry, is it lends itself really nice to that virtually, because you can have your desk with a variety of different things. You you can easily, you're in one spot, you're not moving around a classroom. And so that was something that I always kind of had a difficult time with in the classroom, was writing those anecdotal notes, because I would be on one side of the room and I would forget my notes somewhere else. Whereas virtually, like it or not, you're kind of stuck in one spot. So your materials are right there for you to take those notes.
Yeah, and this is actually something that I will take back to the classroom with me, to the physical classroom. For years, we've been doing calendar. The kids have been sitting at the carpet, and then you have one kid going to the smart board. I will forever do whiteboards now. Everybody's interacting. Everybody's doing the work. I get to see where everybody's struggling and what everybody's doing well. So it's really interesting to pay attention to the way virtual makes you switch your teaching practices, and how that can be reincorporated into how you can change your homeroom teaching as well.
So I have a couple of just reflections. One, this is printed for us so we can share it on the screen, but you actually are working with paper and pencil. Like,
I am.
Yeah, okay. So not everything has to be digital, number one. Just thinking in your conversation, if we go back to, if we're thinking about assessment, were you intentional? You were very narrowed in on like chunking and sounding out. Like you have that narrow focus of what you're looking for. You're getting all kids involved and you're doing a lot of listening. Like that's the observing part. So it's not necessarily a product. So again, that triangulation of data piece. And then it's driving your instruction, what's next, and you're keeping note of that. So if we're thinking about, those teachers that have left from the bricks and mortar schools are now handling this virtually, like that, there's an example of how you have to be focused and really able to work together with other, to find out what the expectations are.
Awesome. And then we had this one as well as kind of a quick anecdotal type of marking as well. Laura, did you want to speak on this one? This type?
Sure. So you kind of popped this one in as a science. The way that I use my checklist would be the same as Val for those morning meets, just keeping a record of who has answered what. I found in September, it was tricky to make sure I was giving each student equal opportunity to engage in the classroom. And then this way it really helped highlight the ones that are not necessarily volunteering virtually and I need to check in with later. So I just kind of keep a checklist of how they are participating in our morning meet, what questions they are answering. So, I mean, every day in our morning meet, we're working on our counting by either 2s, 5s, 10s, and they get to choose. So I'm kind of noticing those patterns. What are they choosing by? Meaning, what are they comfortable with? Who's reaching for that challenge? Who has tried it voluntarily this week? Who do I need to check in with later to kind of pull that out of them a little bit more? And then how they are doing, whether or not it is needing extra support, whether or not they are getting extra support in the background from their home, and whether or not they'll be able to do that independently. So it's just that information for me. So when I'm going to write those report card comments, I know that I can write, okay, they're able to fully do this independently and confidently, consistently throughout the year, or they've made significant progress from the last time I wrote these comments, or they've needed that extra assistance. Whatever it may be, I just have it all laid out by week.
Awesome. And again, you had said that you have this on paper as well. So again, just because we're teaching virtually doesn't mean that every single thing that we have has to be on that virtual platform. Kind of stick with what you're comfortable with. And so this is another kind of example that we had for that checklist to help you to be focused on what you are looking for. So maybe just picking a couple of the different things. This is again from the science unit, and just making sure that you've kind of focused on that. And you could turn that into like a checklist for your students. Did a student show me this? Did the student show me that they can describe different kinds of movement? Did they show me that they can identify ways in which the position of an object can be changed? Have they shown this? And you can just have a quick kind of thing so that you have an at a glance moment to see what they've demonstrated to you and maybe which direction you need to go in after.
And those just curriculum documents just printed in just a little bit friendlier format. But yeah, if we're looking for what are the things we're looking for, we go back to our curriculum, find those big ideas, the overarching expectations and the specific ones. I like how those are written out. And I think this has been kind of conversations we've been having a lot as a team, haven't we, Tanya, about you know, teachers sharing with us that the product alone is not enough. And you were really kind of voiced a lot about this from your virtual school experience, that conversation is where you really find out what kids know.
Right, and having those small group meets can be really, really powerful for you to have an opportunity to really know what the students know, as you know, from your guided reading time or guided math time or different times that you've had small group instruction. And one thing that I think is really kind of amazing opportunity with this is that often when you're having your small group meets, you can focus solely on that small group. You don't have to focus on what's going on in the whole rest of your classroom. And so that was kind of a really amazing gift that I found that I really was grateful and enjoyed in virtual, was that opportunity to focus on that small group. And we mentioned in the meeting last week that the small group doesn't have to be breakout rooms that are multiple rooms and different kids all over the place. You might have a schedule where you have your different groups and they come into your one separate meeting link. And that's where you have your opportunity to chat with them. Or Laura had shared a different time where she has a focus group. Do you want to talk about that for a second? Just since that was kind of a different idea.
Sure. So I don't use any separate meets. I use one Google Meet for the entire day, including small groups, just because I found that 6-year-olds are trying to navigate it on their own at home and don't necessarily have parental support 100% of the day. And so being able to stay logged into one Google Meet made that more efficient on their end. And then I just post a schedule the night before. It's the same time every day for like each kid or small group comes on at the same time every day. So by now it's January, they know this. They shuffle a little bit here and there when I see kids are progressing a little bit or need to kind of catch up on something else, but majority of the time they're staying pretty consistent. So they know that schedule, and then they're just on working with me, and the rest of the class knows those expectations. They have the option, they can go off, they can work on their Seesaw checklist that I've posted for them and different activities they have, just like they would be doing during stations in the classroom. They can choose to stay on with their microphone and camera off if they are worried about having to log out and log back in. And they just know that if they are choosing to stay on, that it's not their turn to be engaging with the material. It's their turn to be working on something on Seesaw or something off screen, whatever the activity is.
I just want to think too about the Google Meet. It doesn't mean you have to meet with every student to find out the science. If you think about that triangulation of data, you may have the product and you have evidence the student really does know. You in your morning chat, they were talking about visiting a garage one time and knowing all about gears and pulleys and systems and all those sorts of things. You don't, so for some students, you may not need to have that extra Google Meet or conversation time. There might be 3 or 4, like, what do you really know? And that's when you just pull in a couple of them into it. Not, you have to have a conversation with everybody about every subject, about every learning goal. It's just about when you need to know more evidence.
They're just getting that clarification.
Yeah, there's just a question in the chat asking, how do you conduct a guided reading assessment? Yes,
I have some responses to that too. So you were wondering about that, Val, right? Like, because you were trying to do, being at the virtual school, you had access to the DRA material, and you're trying to do that DRA. How did that go for you?
Yeah, so I've been finding it it's just taking so long. Like just be patient with yourself, guys. Virtual, it just takes longer. It's not a matter of, hey, come on over to my desk and we'll read. And I have this paper here all already printed off for me to be able to check it off what you're doing, all these expectations. So yeah, we chatted a bit about how you can share your screen, sharing a book, and just doing a log of how they're doing with their fluency, where they need to work, and just finding the language that works for you is, I think, what was the biggest learning curve for me is, can I go back to these notes and write a report card on it? So yeah, sorry, go ahead, Pam.
I was just going to say, you know, you're been doing the virtual learning all year, and you've been like, and you're still struggling with this. So that's one thing. But also, as teachers being in bricks and mortar school until Christmas, and now making this thing to virtual, like all the things I normally would do in January, you might be going like, ooh, I can't do that. And like normally I'd do a DRA on kids so I can gather some evidence, so I can have some really recent information to put on the report card. So now what? Because, you know, one, access to DRA materials, one thing. Since it's a standard like assessment piece, there's like a lot of copyright rules in there, and we don't want anybody in trouble about that, and, you know, making digital formats of everything. So I put in the chat there just something that's a tried and true resource. It's that Guide to Effective for Reading for K-3. And in there, I would recommend you go and check out the running record section. So you can take any text and you know your level, like we can find that from the backs of books, or you can, you know, get some level text. So a certain level where you think kids might, and just do the running record kind assessment. So the student has a copy of the text and you have a copy of the text, and you're doing all of those recording as they orally read to you. And that part, that might be something you do in the small Google Meet meeting one-on-one, and you gather evidence from that. But again, like Val was saying, if she wanted to know, you know, reading fluency, can kids sound out words? Are they using those skills that we're working on? So think about, what do I really want to know? I want to know if kids are fluent. How might I get there? And a tool might be just a piece of paper that I share with them on the screen, and they read to me, and I'm doing a running record beside it. Go simple.
Yeah, go simple is the big one, right, Pam? Because yeah, like we could be another 2 weeks, we could be 4, but you guys are going back to the classroom. So just take it easy on yourself and think, how can I simplify this to just get what I need to know? And sharing screens on just PDF books is a really good way to do that. I was also going to say, we had been talking last week about meeting off in a different Google Meet on the same computer, and somebody had asked me the question, can I present to my main Google Meet and to my side Google Meet? And you can. I did figure that out this week. So if you have 2 Google Meets open, so you have your main classroom and then you have like room 1, you can present your timer to your main group with your checklist, and then you can be presenting your PDF book to your one-on-one Google Meet over there. So anybody who's like grade 2 and 3, like I'm teaching grade 2, and my grade 2s can navigate between my main room and room 1 and room 2.
Thanks for
as long as your internet can cooperate with that, I just have to add.
Be strong.
Awesome. And then we were just going to have a little chat about Google Slides and how that might be really helpful for you. So you could use Google Slides as a day plan to help kind of anchor your day. And we did talk about that a little bit last week, about how you could create those Google Slides and use that to help yourself pace. A lot of times teachers would use Smart Noteboard, and they would have the day kind of planned out with each of the slides on there, and you could use Google Slides instead to help you go from this math point to this next thing to this next thing. And the other thing that we had talked about that we really liked was having those embedded timers in here. And so this was an example that Val had shared with a timer in it. And so you could use these slides to help show other teachers your students, what they need to be doing. So what they're doing, and then a timer, and knowing where you're at if you're in a small group and that you are coming back at another time. Hi, Nicole. I know that you had
So
wanted
excited
to share a
about the
bit
timers
about
last week.
slides. So that was a perfect timing for you. Awesome. Do you have something you would like to share about Google Slides?
Yeah, sure. I just have minimized this screen, so I'm just trying to navigate to get Pam, who's like a size of right now, up to bigger. And okay.
Yeah, we were just talking about those timers. You were like mind blown about finding Google timers on YouTube. That's where we find them, first of all, right? You go 5-minute timer on YouTube and for kids. But then you had another revelation last week. You were so excited.
Well, because I think wasn't it Val? And she shared that she puts them all in one slide. And so she can just pick from them on the spot too. You could just pull one up from your bottom slide and pop it right in there. So that's
So she has a 5-minute timer, 10-minute timer, 15-minute timer, and you just choose which one I want today.
That was a huge help for me. I also I put them into my slides when I build it, but I find that it's quick to do anyways on the spot, but I found that having that bank of them, it's just quick. You can kind of pull from it and copy and paste it in. So it has been very helpful. Did we want to go into Google Slides at all, or what do you think?
Yeah, we don't have any questions in here. So
if there's anybody wondering, because I find for me, it's just that management piece that Google Slides is my daybook. And if I'm ever away, I have to build my slides anyways. And it's just all right there. And I can just navigate from slide to slide as I go through the morning. And I embed all of my hyperlinks there as well. So I don't know, for me, I like having it all in one place as a management tool, but some may have a really good system otherwise too. So I'll share one of my days with you so you can see.
Val, was it you that said you have a different slide deck for every day of the week? Just so because was it you last week that shared that?
Yeah, I do. Just because my schedule, it works that way. So then I can just change up what links and videos are going to be in each one. So I have a template for Monday, template for Tuesday, kind of thing.
Yeah, Val, I think I like the idea of yours too, that do you just go from one slide and then you have a bunch of links on that one slide?
No, I go slide by slide. I go down as we go.
Okay, I recently learned how to add a GIF to this. So that's been my big thing. And now I put something animated on when they log in the morning and I have a good morning for them. And that totally excited me learning how to do that. So I just added that in, and it's not too bad. If you wanted to know how to do that, you just go to giphy.com and you search for one. Whatever one you want to put in there, and I have that's my Winnie the Pooh one. So you will click onto it if I had.
I like the mind blown guy. Been a lot of that lately.
And the kids are always excited when they log in to see. There's lots of different fun ones too. So if this is the one you wanted, and you go to copy link, and then the links will come up, and you copy that link, control copy, or however you copy it on your device, and you go to insert, and you choose insert image, and you put it in by URL. And when you put it in by URL, it will load, and then you insert, and it's right there.
Nice.
And I think that is such a great way to kind of create that community piece in your classroom of fun things that you would probably do in your classroom, your brick and mortar classroom, just kind of adds that fun element virtually.
And then I just go through my slides. So I have a different O Canada for each day of the week. And one of them has 12 different languages. One of them focuses on the Wiggles, and just one is a Canadian band who did it. So I just have a different one. And what I started to do is just like having, when Val said that about the timers, it made me think, whoa, what if I had a template deck? And so I created a deck and had all of my O Canadas in order. Can you still see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
On the side there. So I put all of my 5 O Canadas there. So now I just copy and paste my new slide deck when I want to go. And I know I always have my land acknowledgement. So I will pull, and I have 2 different styles I do because the kids submit pictures in for them, or they draw a picture of themselves outside enjoying nature, and then they speak to it. So, and then I always do like a which one doesn't belong. So then I take that template and I pop it into my new slide. So I have created just a separate deck of main slides that I always use, which I've found helpful this week. And then like we do our land acknowledgement. So it's like my day book too, right? And it's all in one place. And so O Canada is hyperlinked in. And all you do to do that, and Tanya showed you last week, but you just do insert video. And then you search. So Tanya shows you another way as well. So there's a couple ways you can do it. If I wanted O Canada, and I like the walk off the earth one, although they're sitting down, they're using instruments. Created. And you don't have to know, you could just type in O Canada and a bunch of O Canadas will come up. Touch on the one you want, and you select, well, once it loads here. There, that one. You select, and it will just pop it right into your slide deck.
That idea of templates, though, is a great one, Nicole. One, like, once it's a little bit of front work, you know, to get them set up, but then it's like you have your binder of your favorite things just to copy and paste over. And again, that connection piece, like kids want to feel like this is their classroom. So when we start to see those familiar things like that, that helps build some, you know, familiarity, and just like, oh, I know what's coming next when they see a certain slide coming up. Like all of those things help build community.
And for me, when I was doing my slide decks as well, I was navigating through all these different slides thinking, okay, well, I want to do that. What doesn't belong on day 6? I know I did that on day 6. So then I'd have to go to day 6, and then, oh, well, on day 11, I did this, and I go back to that slide and pulled from that. But when I just set up a template deck, it helped me, like you said, Pam, it was just a binder for all of my resources. So
or tap in, I don't know what I want to do today. And then you've got a template that spark you and go, oh, that's what I want to do today.
Yeah, and like Val said, she has a Monday one, a Tuesday one, so she has her different templates, right? And to fill in. And then once you have that in there, you put it right from there. And you can make it bigger, and it will take up your whole screen. And if I press escape, it brings me back. It brings me back to the main one.
And you know, you love all this digital scrapbooking kind of thing. So that shows your personality too, but like it can just be a simple, you know, get the deck started, keep it clean. Everybody will have their own personality there.
Yeah, you can take it as big or as little as what you want it, but it also has to be manageable because there's double planning when you're teaching virtual, I have found. But if I'm sending them for a seesaw activity, I'll do a slide with seesaw, and then I set the timer, and they know when to be back. And a lot of the timers will have a ding at the end when they know to come back, or barking dogs or whatnot. So
that sound is a nice.
What's that, Pam?
The sound is a nice signal, right? Because they could be engaged in play or a exercise, and they hear the ding to come back. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and it just brings them back. The other thing So the background, you just, if you want to change that background, you go to background and you can choose your image, and then you can do a Google image search, and then you search whatever background you want. Like it was Winnie the Pooh, National Winnie the Pooh Day the other day, so select whichever one you want and it will pop it in. And I'm not sure if it'll do it in this one because I have a pre-sorted slide deck, but it will just pop it into the background image. But just as easy as if you went insert and you want to insert an image and you want to go to search the web for image. Showing on my side here.
What's nice about Google Slides too is if you have like the beginnings of one, and then you're learning with kids, it's very easy to add a text box, an image as you're teaching and learning with the students. So you don't feel like you have to have it complete before you work with your students.
Nicole, I really
Yeah.
like how you have your picture of your seesaw activity at the bottom. Did you do a screenshot of that?
You know what I used?
What did you use?
I'll show you. Anya's life-saving tip. So it was Window Shift S, and then this comes up, and then I just screenshotted that seesaw activity, and I copied and pasted it right into this document.
Yeah, I love that. I literally had a student today be like, the math activity isn't there, because I just write math activity, like one math activity, and then a picture of seesaw. And it was in his journal. He just didn't remember what it looked like. So I like that you have the picture of what the activity looks like when they go into their activities tab. So that's awesome. And then you could also add for the older grades, because I know you teach kindergarten, so they probably just play when they're done. But for the older grades, you can also add something like, what do I do next? Like, all done? Here are some options of what you can do when you're all done, just to avoid that your students coming back on the meet and being like, I'm all done. What do I do now? So
Yeah, exactly.
We have a question from the chat, and Laura, you had one way you've managed this, so maybe you can help me with the answer. If you set a timer and they're on Seesaw working, how do they still hear the timer? Do they have to have the Meet open still while working in Seesaw activity?
So this will work for our desktop and computer and Chromebook friends again, but iPad friends will not hear the timer. So I have found that my iPad students have just had to figure out how to tell time digitally. So I'll say, okay, come back in 10 minutes, or when the clock says 1:25. And then they'll tell their adults what time they need to be back on. And we also talked last week about how when your iPad friends just minimize the meet, that they can't use the microphone tool in Seesaw. So just another reminder about that they need to close out of their Google Meet when they're on iPads to be able to use the microphone tool in Seesaw.
Laura, anything to add to that?
So I structure my day a little differently, where I'm not sending them off to Seesaw to work until that work time is going to take the remainder of that period. If we're working on things, we're doing it together where they've brought manipulatives with them or paper or whatever that is. The Seesaw activity would be then the last 20, 25, 10, whatever minutes it would be at the end, so that I don't have to worry about students coming back on time. They know when they leave, they come back if they have questions. If they don't have questions, they work on the activity and they come back after the break, or they come back after lunch, which parents know that's when, okay, I need to know when my student has to come back on. I've also had parents set timers for their students so that whatever the schedule says, then they have a timer at home that goes off. But one thing I do in the last block of my day, because that's a long chunk, is we do one content followed by a second content piece. And so the first one, I send them off to Seesaw to do an activity, and they work on that until they are finished that activity. and then they come back on, and those students that are coming back on are doing our Cosmic Kids yoga, or we're playing our like fitness Monopoly or whatever it is. We're doing something that those students who were working a little bit longer wouldn't have missed out on, because I found exactly that same issue. They weren't hearing that timer because they've exited out of that meeting, and they can't access that meeting and Seesaw simultaneously. So they just know they work until they're done. And usually that second piece is just, it's grade 1, a fun, like, oh, you're going to bring this and we're going to build and we're going to, whatever it is for grade 1. So if they miss out and they don't come back, they're not out learning really important content for something. It's just a fun kind of community.
Yeah, it
aspect
sounds like
of our
both
day.
of you, though, the importance of norms, like teaching them this is what happens when, the first and then, and of the schedule, just like in the classrooms and at school, like we have to have those norms there. And Tanya, I see our time is coming to an end. Tanya, our time's coming to an end. We filled the hour with a lot of great conversation today. Thanks for your
I'm just going to share the link about Seesaw. Aspen though, because I want to make sure that people know that this is coming up.
Yeah, so Thursday.
So there's report card writing in Aspen. Oh, the time is just awful on this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pam.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so Tanya and I will be back together on Thursday. She's my partner, report card writing in Aspen. I believe tomorrow you will be getting notification about the links, and if you press just click time, Tanya. This is my way of finding humor, that your resources have been shipped, just like Amazon. They're somewhere out there, but they will be on the blog soon. So we'll have a session on Thursday at 3:30 if you're just wanting to connect again about working on your report cards. And please bring your questions. We'll be part of the session. We'll be revisiting the skills and steps that you did for the progress report, which will be extremely helpful for you moving forward to the report card for term 1 and 2, and your friends that do the communication of learning in kindergarten. And there's some new resources to discover. So there's some videos going out, mostly because the Markbook page has changed the look. So just a couple of little things, you can access all the strands in writing, in language, for example, and French. And there's been an updated print document. So those will be available for you, so we can have another conversation on Thursday. And I'm going to be a much more patient person, so I don't cut off yet.
Awesome. And so just wanted to thank again Nicole and Pam for helping to present, and for Val and Laura from the virtual school coming to answer all of these questions and share their know-how. That is very much appreciated.
There, still hanging in our session. It was so great to have lots of people out today. Word.
Thanks. So if you have any questions, feel free to share them with any of us, but feel free to reach out to me, Tanya. And my email address was on that slide deck, tanyasteel@lkdsb.net. And we're happy to help answer questions that you have, because the virtual teachers have been there, done that. So they have a lot of know-how to share.
And they have a really great learning stance. They're always learning too. Every week you have something new that you say, I just want to do this. And Rod has assured me that we have a good recording for this session too, so it will be available to be shared. So if you have
Awesome.
friends that to see this, or you wanted to check and see different pieces of it, you'll be able to get that recording the next day or two.
If there's anyone who had an idea, like something they want answered, or they would like any of us to go over with them for the next session too, we are open to ideas, and we want this to be as valuable for everybody. And I mean, ideas that, like, I'm trying new things out all the time in this platform too, so yeah, it'll benefit everybody.
Yeah, I'm wondering about if we should model a running record, like how we could do that, like different ways if we yeah, we love ideas. We want to keep what's happening in the classroom to be the focus here. So just know report card support, our instructional coaches have been at least reading my emails, and they've been previewing this, so I've been training them along too. So they are great resources as well for if you have report card questions and how-to pieces. So they're very eager to help. We ready to go? I can press stop, and Rod says we have a recording. So thanks again, ladies and gents.
Thank you very
that showed up.
much. Yes, thank you.